All right, today I want to talk about a situation that is currently blowing up and will probably get a lot more traction soon if I had to guess. But either way, I want to throw my hat in the ring and discuss it, regardless of whether or not it ends up going anywhere. Right off the bat, this video is not about Kris Tyson. A lot of people are discussing that right now with very good reason, by the way. One of MrBeast's former team members was making inappropriate jokes with a minor, and it's a whole big thing, but that's not what I'm talking about for today. I don't know enough about it to weigh in right now, and I'll probably get to it sooner or later, but it's not a video that pertains to that particular subject, at least not right now. Instead, this is a video about how a very large amount of what MrBeast does for his primary content is quite possibly just flat out illegal, after a former employee raised a video describing his experience, which appears, in my estimation at least, to be shadow banned on YouTube now. I'm going to link directly to that original video down below and summarize a few of the things he talked about, but I also want to focus more on a few separate individual definitions and talk about the broader picture here, where a world-famous creator with hundreds of millions of followers is, yeah. I guess I'm just going to show things and read quotes. I've been told pretty harshly before by people that I do trust a great deal that his team is extremely heavy-handed with how they handle any sort of criticism in a legal way, is what I'm saying. Everybody knows who MrBeast is. If you don't, that's honestly quite surprising, but the quick version is that he's very rich, very powerful, and has hundreds of millions of online fans and followers. He makes his money by posting videos, selling products, doing brand deals, and hosting giveaways. That behavior, namely the giveaways portion, has earned him a tremendous amount of online support and goodwill, as well as fame, because he's routinely pulling out wads of cash even just on the street and handing it over to random people. Well, not so random if you listen to some people, but anyway, $10,000 to you because you subscribe to me, 1,000 here, 100,000 there, even big competitions and game show style videos with $1 million prizes. The atmosphere is that MrBeast might make you rich as long as you support him and are a fan of his. But that's a pretty lofty dream, and while he certainly has a massive legal team behind him, I have no doubt there, some of the things I see, some of the things this former employee talked about, and some of the industry standard regulations that quite possibly apply to him, or at the very least, in my opinion, should apply to him, make me think that there's a much bigger scandal coming down the pike, well and truly beyond the scope of whatever he's facing right now because of Kris Tyson. I'll start with a summary of this, I believe to be shadow banned video by a former employee of his, titled, "I worked for MrBeast, he's a fraud," and it effectively talks about three major points. One, the game show videos and other competition type content that he posts online with prizes attached to it is manipulated. CGI, special effects, timing, etc., in order to make it more interesting for the viewers, even so far as to directly influence the integrity of the competition. Two, the products that he sells, namely Feastables and chocolate bars really, are closer to lottery tickets than actual candy bars, with really strange marketing mechanics and advertising choices attached to them, which seem very predatory towards a younger audience. And three, he is routinely hosting illegal lotteries in his live streams as a promotional tactic for selling merchandise, with additional problems like falsifying signatures, failure to disperse prizes, and more. That's the content of the long form video, again linked down below in the description. But for me, claim 1 and claim 3, or pieces of them rather, are what I want to focus on because there's actually a very specific legal case that came to mind while watching that video that made me really start questioning how long MrBeast can keep doing this before it all comes crashing down on his head. First, we need context. MrBeast very often runs game shows on his channel for hundreds of thousands of dollars. As showcased by this alleged former employee in two different examples, he also heavily influences the outcomes of these competitions by doing everything from paying certain people to leave the competition all the way to giving special equipment to a particular team. The first example given was a girls versus boys challenge where they had to solve a Rubik's Cube, or a bunch of Rubik's Cubes rather, and he deliberately paid one contestant on the boys team $10,000 to leave, which was double the prize pool if he had stayed in the competition, making it an obvious guarantee that he would take the money and go. And he did this because that's the contestant that knew how to solve the cubes. In case it's not clear enough, he straight up rigged the competition in favor of the girls' team in more ways than one. He also gave them a drone to try and spy on the boys' team, but all of that happened directly on camera, which makes it a little bit less impactful, I think. The second example given is far more interesting because it pertains to a competition with a prize of $1 million, the same prize pool in size as a network broadcast program called Survivor on CBS, which I'll be referencing here in a minute, and focused on a woman named Rosanna Pansino. See, Rosanna Pansino had competed in a $1 million hide and seek challenge in which MrBeast, or his editing team, I suppose, deliberately modified the footage, making it appear that she had performed worse than she actually did, and skewing the results, the placements, from the audience's perspective at least, in such a way that the top three appeared to be a trio of very large YouTubers, rather than including her. Simple rundown here. She was hiding. They all had earpieces to know when someone got found. It was announced to them. Logan Paul, another massive YouTuber and controversial at that, got found while she was hiding, after which they offered her money to come out and quit the competition, but she refused, and then she got found while switching spots. However, the winner of this challenge cheated. They said that no one could hide in the ceilings because there was wiring up there or something like that, but the winner of the challenge was hiding in the ceiling, and the editing staff also modified the overall video so that Rosanna Pansino would not appear in the top three, replacing her with Logan Paul. And all of this was done behind the scenes. The viewer had no idea. This is where I want to branch out from that original video. Remember, this game show, and it is a game show, MrBeast runs feature-length game shows with regularity on his channels for massive prize pools. This game show had a prize pool, in this case in particular, of $1 million, the same amount as the CBS reality show Survivor. Well, Survivor, despite being mentioned by this alleged former employee in passing, has a particularly relevant lawsuit brought forward by a contestant of season 1, where she alleges that producers of the show engaged in a scheme to prearrange outcomes by persuading, influencing, or intimidating contestants. She claims that the show's creator and executive producer, Mark Burnett at the time, materially altered the game by influencing multiple other contestants to change their votes, because Burnett believed that a contestant named Rudy, in this case, would be a fan favorite and wanted to keep him on and continue with him in the competition. The case ultimately settled out of court, which means we don't know who won or what actually happened between these parties, but in her lawsuit, Stacey Stillman, that was her name, cited 47 USC 509, which pertains to, quote, prohibited practices in contests of knowledge, skill, or chance, end quote. Here's the relevant section of that code, quote, it shall be unlawful for any person with intent to deceive the listening or viewing public, 1, to supply to any contestant in a purportedly bona fide contest of intellectual knowledge or intellectual skill any special and secret assistance whereby the outcome of such contest will be in whole or in part prearranged or predetermined. 2, by means of persuasion, bribery, intimidation, or otherwise, to induce or cause any contestant in a purportedly bona fide contest of intellectual knowledge or intellectual skill to refrain in any manner from using or displaying his knowledge or skill in such contest whereby the outcome thereof will be in whole or in part prearranged or predetermined, end quote. That's the part that matters, although there is more, but let's go through and simplify it. It shall be unlawful for any person with intent to deceive the listening or viewing public, the audience, by means of persuasion or bribery, to induce or cause any contestant to refrain in any manner from using or displaying knowledge and skill in that contest, which then predetermines the outcome in whole or in part, right? Make sense? Think back here. When MrBeast runs a competition with 100 boys and 100 girls, and then pays one of the boys more than the prize pool amount that he would win by staying in the competition to not help his team anymore, he modifies the result of the competition through bribery during a challenge of knowledge, in this case a Rubik's Cube puzzle, favoring a particular team. Not good. However, that was known. It happened directly on camera. In the case of Rosanna Pansino, however, it happened off camera. He offered her money, which she refused, to drop out of the competition, thereby attempting to bribe her in a manner that would in part predetermine the outcome of the game. What's more, after she refused, seemingly for the purpose of making the video more entertaining, I guess, which people tell me he's acknowledged it elsewhere online, his editing team removed her from the top 3, placing instead a much larger creator in that role, despite the fact that he was not actually there, which deceived the audience, fulfilling basically every single part of this law at one time or another, from what I can tell, in my opinion, to the very letter. Now, I know some people are going to make this distinction here, and they should, to be honest, but a YouTuber is not broadcast television. If you look at the audience metrics, Survivor got an average of 8.4 million viewers across 35 days, while MrBeast will get sometimes 10 times higher than that across a much smaller period of time. His feature-length game show programs are far more popular than pretty much anything on all of broadcast television. But the episode in question, the hide and seek $1 million prize pool video, is a YouTube original program. I can't personally say at what specific point in time a creator who owns a media company that is 10 or 20 times larger and more successful than mainstream broadcast television networks becomes liable under those same rules, or if they ever even apply at all for that matter. But MrBeast appears to be completely disregarding the concept of game show integrity, purely for the sake of making those game shows entertaining. Not good. Except that alone wouldn't be nearly as bad. YouTube is a competitive atmosphere. He's giving away money, lots of it. He's just trying to make things entertaining, and legally, broadcast television rules probably don't even apply to him, so who cares, am I right? Sure, except he also runs frequent lotteries, and I'll use the mandatory disclosure here. I'm not a lawyer, these are just my opinions, but let's take a look at what's going on. First, the FCC classifies lottery as any game, contest, or promotion that combines the elements of prize, chance, and consideration, which is pretty loose, but there's a format here that we have to focus on, highlighted initially by this alleged former employee, of live-streamed merchandise signing. There's a lot of examples here, but oddly enough, most of them get deleted, like this one, video not available. However, on the Wayback Machine, you can see the title was "Buy this shirt, you could win $1 million." And the content of that stream, as put forward again by this alleged prior employee, was a non-stop torrent of claims again and again and again that if you buy a shirt in the next 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you'll get thousands of dollars in your package, or an Xbox or a PS4 or whatever it is they were giving away. He's done this, indisputably, it's a regular occurrence, dozens of times, with prizes that are genuinely worth large sums of money, creating a system where he sells something, like a shirt, attaches a much larger financial incentive to it, like a car or cash, and then sells thousands more of that item, because it's effectively a ticket now for a lottery. Yes, I do think it's important to outline that there was a non-paid method of entry for some of the prizes, but a lot more of them, you had to buy a shirt in the next X number of minutes, and you might get chosen to be flown down for a video or given something huge. On the one hand, you can say, oh, he's giving away all this money to charities and poor people. But on the other, it seems a little bit worse if the money that he gives to one poor person is funded by 5,000 other poor people frantically buying an overpriced t-shirt to enter what appears to be an illegal lottery to the benefit of MrBeast. To be clear, the original video I'm referencing here, the one I believe to be shadow banned by YouTube, is much, much longer and has more examples in it, like Feastables and Beast Burger and faking signatures or whatever else. But the way I see it, there's two main problems right now, and those are manipulating contest outcomes, 47 USC 509, and illegal lotteries that seem just completely indefensible, actually, in my personal opinion. Here's a guess, and it's precisely that, a guess, okay? My guess is that he has an entire legal team advising him on the technicalities of how to do these sweepstakes properly, and if he did, or said, precisely what they told him, there'd be no prosecutable issue. However, when the stream title says buy the shirt to win $1 million, or when he and his friends are just saying stuff like buy another shirt in the next 10 minutes and we'll put, I don't know, $5,000 in the bag for one of you lucky people, or some of you, or every one for the next like 2 minutes gets $100. Like when he's saying stuff like that, and when he decides that the video isn't entertaining enough, so he does things spontaneously that, you know, to change the outcome, that crosses the border from predatory and technically non-illegal to flat out blatantly indefensible, totally illegal, and they have had to pull down the live streams after, right? Like that's why they're deleting stuff, in my estimation, on the channel. It all boils down to a question. At what point does a YouTuber become so big they jump categories without voluntarily jumping categories? A random person in their basement making YouTube videos is not broadcast television, right? Nobody can make that argument. But when a multi-billion-dollar media company, because those are the numbers we're talking about here, is giving away millions of dollars in prizes or hosting dozens of live-streamed lotteries that seem to very blatantly violate the law, at what point does that media company become liable for the activity that they're perpetrating? When a guy is running game shows for hundreds of millions of usually young viewers and giving away life-changing sums of money to various participants, but modifies the rules and the integrity of that competition on a personal whim for the purpose of making it more entertaining to the audience, when does the line get drawn in the sand? When does someone else, a higher authority, step in and say, no, You have to make this fair. You can't just decide, oh, that'd be more entertaining. Let's bribe him to drop out so she can win, or give them a drone so they can have an advantage. That's not okay. And it's a house of cards that MrBeast is living in right now that, in my opinion, absolutely will eventually collapse on top of him. Lastly, for anyone who made it this far but just isn't convinced of anything, totally fair. Remember Rosanna Pansino? Yeah, she just came out with a video regarding the current Beast Games, which is a competition show by MrBeast in filming right now in Las Vegas that will be on Amazon Prime, citing sources from the competitors, of which she claims to have 10 separate ones. Quote, "It was really bad. People were having seizures because they were not getting medication, even though we were promised we would. And it was 100% rigged. They presented it as though the game would be like Squid Games, basically a type of game show where all the games are an even playing field. That was not at all the case. All the games were about speed and strength. So only the young athletic males were at an advantage over the women and elderly people that were cast. To make things worse, men started realizing that they could take out the women without being eliminated. Guys started tackling and hitting women. 2 girls were tackled and passed out on the field and dragged off to continue filming. I saw people with broken bones, stitches, etc., and most were women. We were given maybe 400-calorie meals and only fed every 12 hours. Food would run out, and people would fight over, steal, and hoard food. Water was scarce and kept running out as well. I had to sit with a bloody pad for 2 days before I could get undergarments and my reusable pads because I'm allergic to regular pads. We were also sleep deprived, only allowed to sleep 3 to 4 hours. We all slept on the floor of the stadium in a $10 sleeping bag." Skipping forward here, they offered anyone who lost $1,000 to sign away their rights to join any kind of class action lawsuit of any kind. I didn't sign, so I did not get the money. After this article came out and things started blowing up, they called everyone back and decided to offer an additional $1,000 per person to make up for the inconveniences. End quote. To clarify, this person asserts it wasn't Amazon Prime that called them, it was MrBeast's personal crew. And I do think there's something to be said for unfiltered competition or allowing people to truly compete with each other on, I don't know, kind of a brutal playing field. But if that stuff is true, well, I'll let people make up their own minds. And it feels like there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out here soon from the veritable horde of ex-employees and contestants that were all subjected to non-disclosure agreements. For added emphasis, the horrible conditions were additionally reported on by a local Las Vegas outlet, with Beast Games staff members and production crew allegedly verifying that they ran out of food, there were medical evacs, people's undergarments were permanently lost, and medication was not provided properly. That kind of atmosphere only maintains itself for so long. Aggressive non-disclosure agreements is what I mean by that. At a certain point, when the water comes through the cracks, it pours through the cracks and makes them bigger. And I can't really explain it, but that's the impression I get right now. The water's coming through the cracks. That's it. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below, a VPN deal, locals and Patreon, merch, etc., etc. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, question everything, and have a nice night.